Hi, Mitakeapi, wherever you're from. It's so awesome to be back here with you all today. I don't know if any of you were part of the tea workshop we did a couple months ago. Gosh, the time all runs together lately, so I don't even know how long ago that was. But I always love working with Mindy and doing all of this stuff with her. So yeah, today we're going to make elderberry elixir. Okay. And I have been making this stuff for, gosh, probably 16 or 17 years by now. And it's such an amazing medicine to have around for multiple reasons. And I'll get into all of that. But I'm the food sovereignty skills educator at United Tribes Technical College. I've taught there for a year. Before that, I was actually working over on Mille Lacs for a year. So I know that area fairly well. And before that, I was at Sitting Bull College for almost 20 years. So quite a long time. And I've always taught ethnobotany, and I consider myself an ethnobotanist. And an ethnobotanist is just a big word for a scientist who studies the ways that people use plants, whether it's for food or medicine, or I even, like, we could go outside right now and gather certain plants, and I could teach you how to tie them into rope, and we could make rope with them, or homes. I could teach you guys how to make certain shelters and things like that. So that's what I've done for a very long time. And I've taught other classes too, but that's primarily what I teach is traditional plant uses for multiple people. My mother is Korean and Mongolian. And so of course she's an indigenous woman. And then my dad is a descendant of the Catawba Nation and other Eastern tribes. And so, I have a really diverse cultural background that I come from as well. And I have a 5-year-old. So just so you all know, that just like you guys are dealing with like your kids running around and helping you, I'll probably be dealing with that some as well. So, because of time and because we want to make the best elderberry elixir possible, we're just going to go ahead and jump into it, and then I'll talk about it, if that's okay with you guys. So if everyone could make sure they have a saucepan or some type of kettle around, that would be great. So this is the kettle I'm using. I've never measured this one. I've had it forever, but doesn't even know what size this is, would you say? Is it like a 2-quart or something? I don't know. Large. Okay. Well, so in your kettle, you will want to add your elderberries and your water and the other spices right now. So I have some beautiful dried elderberries that I actually harvested near Hinckley. These are from Hinckley elderberries. And I'm going to add 1 cup of them, just like you guys have 1 cup of dried elderberries. I'm going to add this 1 cup of dried elderberries to my kettle. Okay. About half of that. So I've added my cup to the kettle. I'm also going to add some cloves. How many cloves did you guys get? Like 2 cloves? Yeah, not very big, just the little cloves. Yeah. All right, awesome. What do you guys think of that smell? I always think that the smell of clove is such a beautiful smell. And I have friends from Europe who around Christmas time will take oranges, like they'll buy a few oranges from the store, and they'll take those cloves and they'll poke them into the oranges in different designs, and it smells amazing. So if you guys ever want to, it smells like sort of that time of year. So it's really nice. But take your cloves and go ahead and add them to the pot. So we have our elderberries and our cloves in there. And then I know you guys have star anise as well, or star anise pods. And I think you guys have like 5 of them. Let me just tell you guys right now, how many of you guys, you can just kind of wave, because I know it would get noisy, but how many of you guys like black jelly beans? Not many. So I know that these smell like black jelly beans, and they kind of taste like black jelly beans too, but the flavor of the elderberries and the cinnamon and the clove is stronger. And I will tell you guys that if you added nothing else to this, like if you didn't have cinnamon or clove, I would ask you to add some star anise pods. And it's because they are, I'll talk more about them, but they are powerfully antiviral. So even if you don't like the black jelly bean flavor or that licorice kind of flavor, please do add your star anise to your elderberry elixir. It's kind of an important one, okay? So I'm gonna add mine to there. And then, of course, you guys had a cinnamon stick, I think, right? So I'm gonna take my cinnamon stick and I'm gonna add that to the pot. And then finally, I'm gonna add some ginger. Now, my husband and I were just talking earlier about how shocked we were. We made a massive batch of fire cider 2 days ago. And if you guys don't know what fire cider is, that's another medicinal preparation. So 2 of my favorite things to always have on hand in my home. And I hope you guys will really, really consider this as well. 2 of my favorite medicines to have on hand are elderberry elixir and fire cider. Maybe we can do a fire cider workshop at some point because it's really fun to make actually too. But it requires fresh ginger root. And I had, you know, a ton of fresh ginger. Being part Asian, it's in everything that we eat in our home. And so I added that to the fire cider and don't have any fresh ginger left here at home, which is crazy. But I do have, check this out, this massive bag of dried ginger that some friends sent me. So this is just fresh ginger root that someone, a friend sent me this, that someone got from the store, and they cut it into slices and just dried it on paper towels on their kitchen counter. Okay. When you're drying herbs and spices and things like that, you don't have to get fancy. Okay. And, you know, I think we try to overcomplicate things. But you don't have to get fancy. You don't have to overcomplicate it. If you have some extra ginger, like, you know, let's say you bought some for a stir fry and you're like, what am I going to do with the rest of this ginger? Just cut it up into thin slices, lay it on paper towels, and let it dry right in your kitchen. It'll probably take about 4 days total, okay? So I'm gonna add some of my dried ginger to this elderberry elixir. So I have my elderberries and my spices in here, and now I'm gonna add 4 cups of water. I always like to use filtered water. Honey, can you come put this on the heat? Okay, now I'm gonna have my husband go put this on the stove. I'm going to bring this to a boil. He is. Gonna bring this to a boil, and then we're gonna turn it down just to a low simmer, okay? All right. So let me, you know, now that that's, and we're all starting to have our stuff on the stove, right? So is everyone about there? Have you added all your stuff to the pot, poured your water in, and put it on the stove?
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. So now that we are doing that or have done that, let me say just a couple things about the pot that you're using, okay? And I should have said this before you guys started cooking, because some of you might be using a pot with a nonstick coating on the inside. And that's okay for this first time, but in the future, it's really good to have at least one kettle that does not have any type of coating on the inside. No nonstick coating, especially when you're boiling stuff. It's just a lot of that nonstick coating can actually leach off of the coating, and you can get it in your elixir or even your tea or your soup, whatever you're making in that kettle. There's actually, and this is interesting trivia for the kids too, okay? There's actually a really interesting, totally true story about a gentleman who was frying stuff in a pan on his stove, and he had his pet parrot sitting on his shoulder. Totally true. He's not a pirate. This is a true story. It was a guy with a pet parrot. The parrot was sitting on his shoulder, and he was cooking in a nonstick pan. It had that nonstick coating on it, right? The pan got so hot that it started giving off these toxic fumes that you get, toxic compounds. They don't really affect you as a big human being very much, but his parrot actually fell off his shoulder and died because of the stuff that was coming off of the nonstick coating. And that's really when people started investigating the sort of toxic compounds that come off of a nonstick pan when it's used at high temperatures. Okay. So yeah, no, it's crazy, right? So you know, we actually use cast iron when we cook, when we fry stuff in our house, and we use, you know, stainless steel, and you can even use glass. Like if you just have a glass saucepan or kettle, that's totally fine as well. But try to limit your use of nonstick coatings. And these days they make such amazing weird nonstick coatings. Like we have this diamond pan or whatever, and it doesn't have a nonstick coating. It's just the way that it's made, and it's amazing. So think about that in the future. Okay. So try to use stainless steel or glass or enamel, or you know, something like that. Okay. Okay, so now that we've talked about the containers, I also wanted to talk just real quick about water. It's fine to use, if you guys drink your water. I lived in the Bear Soldier District on the Standing Rock Reservation for about 14 years, okay? And during that 14 years, there was a water boil advisory the entire time I lived there. So this is on the Standing Rock Reservation, and I lived on the South Dakota side in the Bear Soldier community, okay? Bear, like the animal, soldier. And they had a boil advisory that entire time, and I believe it's still in effect. So I've gotten really used to filtering water, and I even bought like a fancy water filter that you can see behind me. And that is to say that if you have good drinking water, feel free to use tap water then. Feel totally free. But if you don't, like, this is medicine. So try to use filtered water if you can, okay? Unless you have good water out of your tap. Okay, any questions on the container or the type of water? Okay, awesome. So let's talk ingredients here. We are making elderberry elixir, okay? What is an elderberry? I don't have screen share on here right now, and that's okay, because you could actually, and Mindy, if you wanted to, you could put a picture of elderberry, the bush, up. But elderberry is a shrub. It's a bush, okay? And it can get hugely tall. It can actually get massively tall. I've seen some that are like 15 feet tall, right? But you guys actually have elderberries there right in front of you. So you know it's a shrub that produces clusters of tiny purplish black berries, okay? And if you're into scientific names like I am, it's Sambucus, the native kind, the kind that like the Ojibwe and others have used for a long time, is called Sambucus canadensis. The kind that we get most in the store is Sambucus nigra, but they're both wonderful. Okay. So there was a question: are you supposed to be stirring right now? No, not necessary. Really not necessary. I usually give it one stir after it starts to boil, but remember, once it comes to a boil, then turn it down to just a simmer, just a really, really, regular simmer. That's a great picture, Mindy. So you can see those clusters of little tiny dark berries, okay? You do want to wait until they're ripe to harvest them, and then they're super easy to dry, okay? So I have some beautiful black elderberries here. Let me see if I can kind of, okay? And something that you guys might not know, if you have one or two left in your bag, you can actually just eat them just like this. They're delicious. To me, they taste like a cross between a blueberry and a raisin. But that depends on, where you get them from too. Put them in trail mix, right? And then you have this awesome medicinal trail mix. Mix them in with your, like if you guys make the berries for a ceremony, mix them in with your berries. And then you'll have the blueberries in there, but you'll also have this wonderful antiviral berry in there called elderberries. Now, when I visited some friends who were Amish up in Pennsylvania a long time ago, and they make elderberry pie up there. They harvest their elderberries and make elderberry pie. So you can make elderberry cookies, you can have elderberry juice, and you can even make elderberry tea. So we're making an elixir, which is a lot stronger and more concentrated. but elderberry tea is also a possibility if you're interested in that. Okay, so you can do all kinds of stuff with these elderberries. And this one thing I love about them is that elderberries are very safe. Okay, very, very safe. So, you know, my kids, when I make elderberry elixir, it tastes so good because of that combination of the berries and the honey. My kids sneak into the fridge and take drinks of it, you know, or one of my sons, even because we drink a lot of bubbly water with no sugar in our home, he'll mix the elderberry elixir with the bubbly water to make this sort of like elderberry soda. And it's fantastic. But, you know, I'm actually okay with it because it's a medicinal soda, basically, but mostly sugar-free. It just has the honey in there, right? So elderberries are really safe. Now, there are different kinds of elderberries. So, of course, I just showed you guys the black elderberries that I have, but I have a friend from California who also sent me some blue elderberries. So let me see if I can get that color difference in there for you. So these are the blue elderberries here. Can you kind of tell on camera? I'm not even sure if you, oh, good. Okay. And the black. So these blue elderberries are wonderful as well. And they are also very antiviral and antimicrobial. I'll talk about that in a second. But you know, they're nice. I had a friend, they only grow in the South, the Southern part of this continent. So if you have a friend who lives down that way, you can ask for some blue elderberries. I find them to be a little bit sweeter. So, you know, every once in a while, I'll make my elderberry elixir and I'll add in a handful of blue elderberries as well, just for the flavor difference and all of that stuff. But, you know, you can use whatever you can get a hold of is fine. Except all over Minnesota, and Mindy and I had this conversation because one time she sent me pictures of elderberry bushes, but they were the red elderberry, and they grow all over where you live, but they're not medicinal. They have, well, I can't say that because I'm sure someone uses them as medicine, but they are not antiviral, and they just don't have the medicinal compounds that the black and blue elderberries have. So unfortunately, you know, now when you take a walk in the bush, a walk in the woods next time, you're probably going to see some red elderberries, and you're going to wish, because they're so plentiful there, you're going to wish that you could use them for medicine, but they really don't work the way that we would want them to. But they are a good food source for animals, so you know they have their importance in the system, right? So we have these beautiful elderberries, and yeah, like I said, there's so many uses for them. We will end up simmering them. So Hunter has a great question. How long are we going to simmer our elderberry elixir on the stove with the elderberries in there? We're going to let that go on the stove probably for about 40 minutes. And that's why you really want it to be on a low simmer. You know, you don't want it to overboil or anything like that. So turn it down enough and then check on it every once in a while. I wouldn't leave the room, you know, check on it every once in a while. You can stir it if you want to, but you don't have to. And just make sure that it's still rolling just a little bit. Okay. Because basically what we're doing is it's called reducing. Okay. So if you've ever boiled water in a pot and you accidentally forgot it was there, what happened to all that water? It boils off as steam and it goes away, right? When I was first learning how to cook, I accidentally burned a pan because I forgot I was boiling water in it. I walk away from the stove way too much, even now. But you actually can let it reduce by about half. That's some pretty strong elderberry elixir. Now, even if you only reduce it by 1/3, that's fine. It's totally fine, okay? But what we're trying to do is really get it to be thick and infuse it quite a bit, infuse the water quite a bit, and get it to be stronger, okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can it ever be boiled too much? Like, could it hypothetically start turning somewhat gelatinous?
It can, and that's okay because you're just kind of making an elderberry jelly there. It happens. You know, you can boil it down so much that it's thick, or you could use, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because there's pectin in elderberries, which is in other berries as well. And that pectin will cause it to thicken and almost and almost be like a jelly. And that's fine. It's medicinal elderberry jelly.
The last time I made a batch, I put it in the fridge and then I took it out and went to pour it from one container into another to bring some to my parents. And it went clunk, clunk. And I was like, how did that happen?
Did it already have the honey in it and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it'll really thicken up. And I don't think that's a bad thing personally, you know? So I wanted to show you guys this because we're talking about the elderberries, and I showed you the black elderberries and the blue elderberries. In some places you can even find, can you guys see me? Freeze-dried elderberries. Can you guys see this? Yeah, watch. So here, do you see? I have one in my fingers. Watch. It just crunched and it basically turns into a powder. Okay, so these are freeze-dried elderberries. You could probably even hear the crunch. But these freeze-dried elderberries, first of all, they make an awesome snack. They're almost styrofoamy. You know, it removes the liquid. But do you see how large they are? They really retain their plumpness, and they retain all of their medicinal value and everything. They're just put into a freeze dryer. That's a totally separate tool than a dehydrator. And I really like them. So if you can get some freeze-dried elderberries, you could totally use those as well. And the reason I brought this up now is because they will make your elixir very thick. And like Anaya is saying on there, she's saying, is it supposed to be similar to a wojapi consistency? When you use freeze-dried elderberries, it will be sort of thicker like wojapi. Okay. And like what my husband and I do, because we hate wasting the elderberries, and you'll see tonight we'll strain these elderberries out. But a lot of times what we'll do is we'll take an immersion blender in there instead and just grind the whole thing up. That's great to do, but the flavor is very, very strong then. And I've found that kids do not like it when it's too strong like that. So I'll show you guys, you know, we'll strain it out, and it's still wonderful and medicinal, but you will end up straining a lot of that elderberry out, okay? So we talked about the dried black elderberries, the blue elderberries, the red elderberries, and the freeze-dried elderberries. It's just another way of drying them for preservation. And elderberries are antiviral. So what does that mean? It means that they destroy viruses, okay? According to Western science, right? So Western science has these rules, okay? These sort of rules that something has to pass in order to be considered living, right? It's a very Western notion. For some reason, Western science does not consider viruses to be alive. So I try to never say it kills the virus. Although, you know, in my opinion, according to native science, viruses are alive. But so elderberry elixir has been shown over and over to destroy viruses. And it's absolutely an amazing antiviral. And that's not just according to native science. You know, it's not just a traditional medicine. Elderberries are being used more and more and more by Western medicine as well, because they've proven over and over how powerfully medicinal they are. They're not just antiviral. They're also they help to boost your immune system. Okay, so you know we all have this system in place that if we come in contact with a virus or a bacteria, we have this system that will sort of attack the virus or the bacteria. Elderberry will help to boost and strengthen that system. Okay, so there were actually when COVID first hit way back in March, there was a little bit of controversy about elderberry because it boosts the immune system. Someone was saying, well, we shouldn't give it to people with an autoimmune issue. So if any of you have RA or something like that, right, or another autoimmune disease, an autoimmune issue, people will tell you, be careful of things that boost your immune system too much. We actually, and so there were actually a lot of people who were like, don't use elderberry and don't use elderberry. And a lot of us, especially indigenous people and people who have been working with elderberry for a long time, we were like really confused. We were like, why are you saying that? It's not going to cause a problem. It's not going to overactivate your immune system. And so there's actually been new research even since last March that backs that up, that elderberry elixir is totally safe even for people with an autoimmune issue. Now, if you're the least bit worried, go ahead and take, like, let's say you have an autoimmune issue, go ahead and take your elderberry. But when you first notice that you're getting sick, just stop if you're the least bit uncomfortable, okay? But elderberry elixir is an amazing, safe, yummy way to boost your immune system and fight illness. It's just absolutely fantastic. Yep, yeah. And Hunter, I don't know if your mom is Native or not, but RA strikes indigenous people and other people of color actually more than it does people of European descent. So, you know, RA or rheumatoid arthritis is what that is. So, so absolutely. Yep. Sarah, great question. Sarah's asking if elderberry elixir is safe for pregnancy. I used elderberry my entire pregnancy. I mean, I even used the tea, everything. And because I didn't want to get the flu shot because my first son had a reaction to it. Now, I'm not anti-vax. I get other vaccines, but I didn't want to get the flu shot while I was pregnant. And so I was using elderberry instead, and I never ended up getting sick. And you can actually use elderberry elixir as a preventative. So even against COVID. You can take like, you know, a good sized tablespoon a day every morning, you know, on the way out the door. Like, you know, but when our kids were still going to school outside of the home, we would just line our little cups up, and, you know, as they were walking out the door, they'd have their elderberry elixir and their fire cider, you know. So it's just a really simple, safe thing to have around. Okay. And, you know, also, like I said, good, like it tastes pretty good. Okay. So we've talked about our elderberries. Now let's talk about that star anise again. Okay. Oh, before I move on, who was that asked earlier about the fresh elderberries? Deborah asked about using fresh elderberries. So right now you used 1 cup of dried elderberries. If you were going to use fresh elderberries, I would double that in the recipe and use 2 cups of fresh elderberries. Okay. And that's just because the dried are so much stronger and more condensed. Okay. All right. So let's talk about that star anise. Oh, here's a beautiful one. I always think, you know, you could do all kinds of fun craft projects with these. I'm not a crafty person, but they're really, really pretty. So star anise, of course, is a seed pod. And it's actually originally from over in the Middle East, and it's used in a lot of Middle Eastern and Asian cooking now. So like some people, like if they make a pot of jasmine rice, they'll throw 1 star anise in on top of it to kind of flavor that pot of rice. It's amazing, especially if you have it like with curries and things like that. It's also ground up and used as a powdered spice in a lot of spice blends. If you've ever heard of Chinese 5 spice powder, star anise is one of the 5 spices in 5 spice powder. But if any of you guys have ever heard of, and now the name is slipping my mind, what's the Tamiflu? Have you ever heard of Tamiflu? That's that antiviral medication. If any of you guys are my age, you probably remember the swine flu scare way back, what was that, 2005 or 6 or something? And they were actually, they at that time, companies were hoarding Tamiflu because they were super worried about what we're experiencing now, which is a pandemic. And so the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of people started doing research to figure out what Tamiflu was made from. And guess what it's made from? It's made from star anise. Yep. Oh, I did not know that, Anaya. Anise is the original flavor of NyQuil. I did not know that. It was probably put in there as an antiviral. That's a great fact there. Thank you. But yeah, so star anise, the active compound is used to make Tamiflu. Okay, so there are so many Western medications and over-the-counter and prescription medications that have their foundation in traditional knowledge from all over the world, and star anise is one of them. Okay, so a lot of people right now who don't have access to elderberries or don't like elderberries even are actually drinking a tea made from star anise and cinnamon. So let's say, you know, you are traveling and you don't want to bring a jar of elderberry elixir with you, but you want to be able to, like, you know, stay healthy. You could actually just put a cinnamon stick and a couple star anise into your purse or your backpack or whatever. And when you're on the road, you could go to a coffee shop and ask them for a cup of hot water or a cup of green tea, and just add your star anise and part of your cinnamon stick to your green tea. That would be an amazing medicine. Green tea has actually been shown in numerous trials to fight COVID as well. So think about how simple that is, how quick and how easy it is, right? So there's so much that we can be doing and taking responsibility, you know, for our health. There's so much we can be doing that's so simple and inexpensive. Just a star anise pod, some, you know, part of a cinnamon stick into some hot water or some green tea. And even that will be very, very helpful for you. Not only will it help you to boost your immune system and fight off viruses, but if you did become COVID positive, if you did have COVID, you would be able to fight it off a lot better with a lot of these plants that we're talking about today. Okay, so that's the star anise. Wonderful medicine. So the cinnamon has always been known as an amazing antiviral. So this is another antiviral medicine. Elderberry elixir is such a, you know, powerhouse elixir because it has so many good medicines in it, and cinnamon is one of them. You know, if you were in a pinch and you have some powdered cinnamon, use that instead. It's totally fine. If you were in a pinch and you had powdered cinnamon and nothing else, you can actually make a great medicine with just cinnamon and some hot water. You know, just make some cinnamon tea. Even that is good. So Melissa's asking when we put the honey in. Not yet. It'll be in a little bit. So mine is simmering now. My elderberry elixir, my elderberry on the stove is simmering. So you guys should all have yours at a good rolling simmer right now, having it reduced down. You should see some steam coming off the top. Okay. All right. So cinnamon. Cinnamon, by the way, is also great for diabetics. Okay. So if you know someone who's diabetic who needs help stabilizing their blood sugar, perhaps they're on, even people who are insulin dependent, you can actually mix some ground cinnamon with like, you know, some stevia or something that's kind of sweet, or even into some fruit juice, and have them drink just a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and that will help to lower and stabilize blood sugar in the long term. Okay. Mary's saying that her family went to the bedroom and shut the door because they don't like the smell. You know, one time we were making elderberry and someone walked into my house and said, do your kids have really stinky feet? Because, you know, they were like, wow, there's like a really weird smell in here. And it kind of does smell like boiling raisins or something, right? I don't know. I've grown to like it. Like, to me, it smells really good in here right now. I can smell the cinnamon. I can smell the clove, you know, the star anise. To me, it smells great. But yeah, it does happen that the smell bothers some people. Okay, so I talked about the star anise and the cinnamon, and we also added some clove into our mix. Clove, of course, is another really amazing spice that's added to, if you make ginger snaps, you've used clove. If you make pumpkin pie, you've used clove. Wonderful smell, but also, you know, wonderfully antiviral as well. So clove is another one that you can you know, really keep around nicely. And then of course, ginger. Ginger, I could go on and on about. You know, it's a really great example of that food is medicine. But a lot of you guys might know the plant. Oh gosh, what's the name of wild ginger? It's begins with an N. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Namapin.
Namapin, yes.
Namapin.
So Namapin, if you're Ojibwe, in Dakota, there's a name for it too, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I'll look it up. But Namapin or wild ginger can be used in this recipe as well. Okay. Now ginger, of course, is a plant that grows in Hawaii all the time. So if you guys have the hookup on some beautiful fresh ginger or even turmeric from Hawaii, you could use that instead. But the ginger is antimicrobial, meaning it won't just destroy viruses, but it kills bacteria as well, bad bacteria. Ginger is wonderful for a sore throat. It's great for coughs as well. So another really simple recipe, you guys, you know, should always try to have some fresh ginger on hand, even if it's just a piece like that big, you know what I mean? It's just a great thing to have on hand. And if it dries, you know, and gets like this ginger, that's totally fine too. Ginger, lemon, and honey. Don't forget that recipe. It can save your life. I mean, and I mean that in a literal sense. If I don't have elderberry elixir around, if I don't have fire cider around, I'll boil some ginger root with like half of a lemon. I'll just throw like one thumb size and half of a lemon into my saucepan with a couple cups of water, and I'll boil that up for about 10 minutes. And then I'll just pour that into a cup and add some honey. And like, if my kids have a really terrible cough, they drink that. If any of you guys have a powwow singer in your family, that is the tea that I make the most. I mean, like when we have ceremony, whether, you know, you guys have your drum dances out there, you have powwows, you know, even if it's Sundance, you know, those guys sing for hours and hours and hours. And sometimes they get a really sore throat. So sometimes what we do is we make a big kettle of ginger, honey, and lemon tea. And we have that sitting there for the singers, just for them, because it's so soothing for the throat. And it can extend a singer's ability to sing for hours and hours and hours. Okay. It soothes, but it does that same thing for a cough, right? So if you or a family member has a cough, another thing that we do is like, we'll keep a little glass or a jar next to our kid's bed. And if they start to cough in the middle of the night, they just have a spoonful of that ginger, lemon, honey. We use elderberry elixir that way as well. But you know, even we run out sometimes. So okay, so that's the ginger, you know, wonderfully antimicrobial, great for coughs, great for cough medicine, things like that. I also wanted to tell you there's lots of other things you can add to your elderberry elixir, okay? You are only limited by your imagination. How many of you guys are familiar with the berries off of the rose bush? We call them rose hips. So I have a bag of rose hips that I picked even just this winter. I just picked these like a couple weeks ago, and they're still kind of soft. See that? They're kind of soft. The seeds are falling out. But I can add a handful of rose hips to my elderberry elixir. If you guys had them sitting around, you could do that. Rose hips or rose berries are super high in vitamin C. Vitamin C helps to prevent infection. If you know someone who is going to have surgery, or if you know someone who's very prone to lung infections like pneumonia, rose hips are your friend. Okay. Like, 1 year. So my son who's 17 now, I have 3 sons, but the one who's 17 now, when he was, I think about 6 years old, he would get pneumonia almost every year because he gets this terrible cough, and it would like cause everything to sort of, stay into his lungs, and he would get this terrible lung infection. So I started giving him rosehip tea, and elderberry elixir and things like that. And that really helped. He hasn't had pneumonia since then. since that last time that he went in. He has not had pneumonia since then. So these immune boosters and these very high vitamin C things are wonderful. And that's like, you guys will see, I'm going to squeeze some lemon juice. I have some leftover lime because we had tacos. So, I have this leftover partially dried up lime, I don't waste anything. I keep this stuff and I throw it into my elderberry elixir, or I squeeze what I can out of it. There's some orange peels in there, especially if you get organic oranges, throw your orange peels into your elderberry elixir, you don't have to put them in the garbage. There's so much medicine in orange peels. Okay. They're super high in vitamin C, and all those orange oils are really, really good for you. Some medicines that we can talk about. I just got this, so I have to show it off. It's awesome. But so this is a grinding stone, but these are a lot of medicines that you guys are familiar with that we put into our elderberry elixir on a regular basis. I have some bear root here. Smells super good. I love bear root. We actually burn bear root as well for headaches and even migraines. Bear root's wonderful. You can take, you can see this one. This is a piece of bear root and it's been burnt many times. And we'll just light the end and inhale the smoke through our nose, and it'll help to get rid of the worst headaches. And even helps with sinus infections. Okay. But you can put some ground up bear root into your elderberry elixir. It's wonderful lung support. So if you know someone who has asthma, if you know someone who has other lung issues, COPD, bear root is wonderful, wonderful medicine for those lung issues. Okay. You can also grind up and add some chaga. Man, you guys are in the land of chaga. We don't have birch trees out here on the prairie. So, I have to get my Ojibwe friends and my Dakota friends to send me the chaga. But yeah, so this is a mushroom it's kind of a hard bark-like mushroom that grows on birch trees. And I always feel like it's a combination because it has the medicine from the fungus, the mushroom, and the medicine from the birch, this is great lung support as well. And also chaga has been shown over and over. If you know someone who has cancer, chaga has been shown to actually reduce tumor size. Okay. So, you can grind that chaga up and powder it and put that into your elderberry elixir as well. If you don't like mushrooms, don't let the chaga scare you. It does not taste like a mushroom. In my opinion, it actually is kind of sweet in a way, and I love mushrooms, but if you don't worry. It does not taste the way that most mushrooms do. Okay. And then Deborah, I'll answer your question in just 1 second. I also wanted to say cedar. Right? This is a really common medicine that you guys have out there. You have tons of beautiful cedar. Go out, pick a few cedar leaves off of your cedar bush in your yard and throw those into your elderberry elixir. Cedar is wonderful lung support. It's antimicrobial. Actually, during this time of COVID, you can actually keep a pot of water boiling on your stove very, very low and let that steam get in your house. Put some cedar leaves in there. And let that cedar steam get throughout your house, and it helps to prevent other people from getting sick while putting moisture in the air. So something to remember about viruses, everything from COVID to the flu, right? They're totally different, but they're both viruses. Viruses hate moisture. They hate moist air. Okay, so try to keep it nice and humid in your house during the winter instead of letting the air to be dry. Put a humidifier on or something like that. If you don't want to boil cedar on your stove, you could put a few drops of cedar oil into your humidifier as well. So Deborah's asking where you can get bear root. Bear root is also known as OSHA, O-S-H-A, okay? And it only grows in the mountains, like it grows at slightly higher elevations. And you kind of got to be careful with it because it's very sensitive to over harvesting. So if you get some, and you can buy some online, although everyone that I've checked with is out of it right now. And I mean, everyone that I've checked with. But if you can get some, it's wonderful medicine. But find someone who will harvest it sustainably and in a good way. If you can't get a hold of bear root, there's a plant called lovage, L-O-V-A-G-E. That's a wonderful substitute. it's almost as medicinal, right? So you could also add some powdered lovage to your elderberry elixir. Okay. So we talked about the bare root, the chaga, the cedar that you could add. I'll probably end up adding some bare root and chaga to this batch of elixir that we're making now. We talked about our leftover lemons and limes or oranges or orange peels, whatever you guys have. We talked about the different kinds of elderberry. We talked about the star anise, the clove, the cinnamon, the ginger, all wonderful medicines that you can add. Oh, we talked about rose hips as well, which are a great high vitamin C. 3 little tiny rose hips. I don't know why they call them rose hips instead of roseberries, but 3 little tiny rose hips have more vitamin C than a huge grapefruit. Okay, so very, very high in vitamin C. You can actually eat these and put these into trail mix as well, but you want to make sure to remove the seeds. The seeds, if you're gonna make tea out of this, the elderberry elixir will be fine because you got to strain that anyway. But rose hips have little tiny hairs on the seeds. So you want to make sure to remove those so they don't like irritate you. Okay. All right. Is there any, oh gosh, I almost forgot. So I have a bag of mint here, wild mint that I harvested out here actually. Add wild mint to your elderberry elixir. If you, or, you know, like if you go to the store and you bought some fresh mint for a recipe and you have some mint left over, throw it in there. Throw it into your elderberry elixir. It's wonderful. And mint, again, all of the whole mint family. Mint is a family of plants that are related to each other. And so like spearmint, peppermint, you know, bee balm, all those, all related, all types of mint, all wonderful in your elderberry elixir. Okay. And Owanakwe is asking about swamp tea. Absolutely. I have a jar behind me. I'm probably going to end up adding some to this batch because I added it to a batch once. And not only did I feel like it added great flavor because I love swamp tea, but, you know, swamp tea is such a great medicine as well. Also wonderful for lung support, and it's anti-inflammatory. So everything I've showed you here today is anti-inflammatory. Okay. Here's the thing about COVID. All right. Check this out, you guys. Everyone went way back in March. We all thought COVID was causing lung infections like pneumonia, and people would cough and cough and cough. Oh, and it was the most horrible cough. And they felt like their lungs were closing up. Well, what was often happening is not that the lungs were getting congested. They were getting inflamed. They were swelling up, and it was causing the breathing passages to close. So we, you know, came to realize that we really need to concentrate on anti-inflammatory herbs, elderberry, star anise, clove, cinnamon, mint, bare root, chaga. All of these are anti-inflammatory. So I'll tell you, if any of you suffer from arthritis, or if you know someone who does, elderberry elixir that we're making today is actually great even for that kind of inflammation, and it helps for arthritis. Hunter's asking how much longer this is going to be going for. Let's see, it's 7:24 now. How long are we scheduled for, Mindy?
We go until 8.
Okay, so, but I promise that we will start working on stuff. You'll be doing some stuff in just a minute, Hunter.
Okay. Also asked how much swamp tea should she add.
Did you pause, dear, or is that me? Oh, sorry.
You paused. Apparently I paused. I don't know. Owanakwe was asking how much swamp tea should she add if she wants to add swamp tea.
So if you want to add some swamp tea to your elderberry elixir right now, you're using 1 cup of elderberries. So I might use just like 2 to 3 tablespoons of swamp tea. It's up to you. I will say that. Everyone loves measurements. But you know, this is the reason I'm showing you guys all of these optional ingredients, is because I want you to take this and make it yours. You know, if you want to add a cup of swamp tea, it's not going to hurt anything. Okay. I mean, there are some medicines that you should be careful with, but none of these are it. Okay. It would be very safe for you to add, you know, a 1/4 cup even of swamp tea leaves to this, okay? Just, you're gonna have to, when we, if you're adding it now, Owanakwe, you wanna not strain it when we do, because you want those swamp tea leaves to infuse in there for a while, maybe about 10 minutes, okay? All right, so, Mindy was asking about other medicines that can be used for migraines. There are quite a few, like willow bark or white willow bark that you guys do have growing out there. Makes a wonderful tea for migraines. Sage, just burning sage can really help people with their migraines. Excuse me, I know I talk a lot. But yeah, so willow, sage, bare root, chaga, even chaga tea is really good. A lot of times migraines are the result of a dietary issue, an allergy causing that inflammation or that pinching of of the capillaries. So I often tell people, try to go gluten-free for a week and see if you still get migraines. Try to go dairy-free for a week and see if you get migraines. It's hard to do, and some people are like, you know what, my migraines aren't so bad. I'll just keep eating my fry bread and my ice cream and everything will be fine. And that's fine, that's totally up to you. But yeah, if you're interested, and I'll tell you what, for anyone on here who has issues, or if your kids or grandkids have issues with eczema or psoriasis, probably 80% of the people that I work with who have eczema or psoriasis, I'm sorry, 80% of the indigenous people I work with, it's almost always gluten or dairy. And we're able to almost completely get rid of the eczema or psoriasis by, Mary, by eliminating gluten or dairy. Yeah. So I have to tell you, Mary, because you say that, and because I was talking about this just the other day. I used to be super mean about fry bread and stuff. I'd be like, fry bread is the food of the oppressor. Eliminate fry bread and stuff like that. Now I was young and, loud and all of that stuff. And as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that that is not the way to be. And so what I tell people is, hey, if you're going to have your fry bread, that's totally fine. But then, maybe put extra vegetables on top of your Indian taco or something like that, or into your soup, or something, and then we've also experimented in our house with different kinds of flour when making fry bread. So we even will grind up, some of you might not be familiar with this, but if any of you have ever been out this way, we actually grind, this is a root that we go out and get on the prairie every year. In Lakota, it's called Timpsila. And it does actually grow in Minnesota as well. And it's in, if you look at really old ethnobotany documents for the Ojibwe, they do mention this quite often as a traditional food. And I don't know how many of you guys have been to that museum up at Mille Lacs, but I was really surprised because in one of the wigwams, they had a braid of this hanging. And I thought, I wonder if they traded for that, but no, it grows in Minnesota and even up into some parts of Wisconsin. And you can actually grind this and make a totally gluten-free, low glycemic index flour, and mix that partially with the flour that you're already using. I bought my husband a bag of Bluebird flour for Christmas. That's how, so when you, when we're talking about fry bread, my husband loves his fry bread. So I don't want you guys to think we're fry bread free in our house. But we only make it twice a year. So I always say, I eat my kamachis. I had a kamachi sandwich last night. So, I'm not perfect, but I try. Okay. So, oh yeah, Mindy, that's a great idea. Okay. I'm trying to see if there's any questions on there.
Someone
okay.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say someone had typed in, what should they do once it gets reduced?
Okay. So dear, can you grab the elderberry elixir? Okay. So now let's continue on making our elderberry elixir. Let's get this going. Is the small one, has it reduced? Okay. Awesome. So I have a big, huge kettle of elderberry elixir to use. But I'm going to do the small one with you guys first. Okay. So grab a bowl. Sorry, a big bowl or a big kettle. Okay.
All I can think of is somebody grabbing a cereal bowl. So when you said grab a bowl, I was like this.
A big bowl. So here's the one I'm grabbing. Do you guys see this? Okay. Grab kind of a bigger bowl. Okay. Like a mixing bowl, something like that. I'll wait. Okay. Grab a strainer while you're at it. Grab a bowl and a strainer. And then Mindy handed some cheesecloth out to you guys, right? So you'll want to put the cheese. So see this? I did not tie-dye this. This is our fire. We have a bunch of tea towels that we use when we strain fire cider, and fire cider has turmeric in it. So it's basically tie-dyed our tea towels. We just use them over and over, and that way we don't have to throw the cheesecloth away. So let me just show you my little setup here. I have a bowl with a strainer inside, and I'm just gonna lay my cheesecloth right in there. Okay. I just want to show you guys one more time. Are there any questions on this part? The bowl, the strainer. Okay. I see you guys doing it. You guys got it. You're doing awesome. Okay, awesome. And now my very non-clumsy husband, Hunter, will totally do a fire cider thing. Okay. Okay. So I'm sorry. Was there a question before I pour this in here?
No.
Okay. So my husband, can you guys see that? Okay.
Yeah.
He's pouring the. Awesome. So I just have my here in my strainer, and that's gonna dye it some really weird colors. Oh yeah, never wear white when you're doing this. I probably should have said. I can't see my camera, so can you guys? Oh wait, there it is. Okay, yeah, so you guys can. Okay, so do you see? My cinnamon stick is in there. I see the star anise, all that stuff. If you guys wanted to take those big spices out of there and put these elderberries into a food processor and then add them back to your elderberry juice, you can do that. But I'll tell you, it causes a gritty texture and a very strong flavor that not everyone likes. So we're making sort of a kid-friendly version, okay? So now what I'm doing, I'm just gonna lift this up here. You guys see that? It's still draining. If you want to make it happen faster, you can push it up against the side of here. Oh, you brought me a bigger spoon. Thank you, dear. See my spoon here? Press it up against the side there if you want it to go faster. If you're like Hunter and you're impatient, you can do that. It's going to be too hot to touch right now. You know, but you want to make sure that you get all that beautiful, beautiful elderberry juice out of there, okay? You know, don't waste it. Even if it takes a while for you to strain it. Be patient. Patience, patience. And if you get brave and you have, you know, an adult with you, they can probably even squeeze this out, but
I was gonna say I normally just burn my hands and squeeze it out.
yeah, I do that a lot too. But I'm also making a bigger batch, so I'm like, I can just add it to the bigger batch. Can I also give you this strainer, dear? Okay. You guys look, check out all that beautiful elderberry elixir at the bottom of here. Isn't that nice?
Do you see Jill's? Sorry.
No, what'd you say?
Do you see Jill's video right now?
Yeah, beautiful.
She's smushing a bowl down on top of it in here.
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely. So we have to do this a lot. So we have a press, like a apple cider press and all that stuff you can use. But that's a great idea. You must cook a lot. Is that right, Jill? You cook, yeah. So you have your elderberry juice in here now. I'm just gonna wait another minute or so to let people kind of catch up, and I'll just show you guys this. This is just your infused elderberry juice, okay? And, you know, this is a little more than 2 cups. Mine didn't reduce all the way down by half, and that's totally okay. That is totally okay, all right? But you can see it's nice and dark. It's gonna be really like strong. I can smell all the spices in there, okay? And if you wanted, like, let's say you were making elderberry elixir for someone who is diabetic, you could stop now. You don't have to add the honey, okay? You could stop now if you were working with someone or giving this to someone who has diabetes, okay? Because, and that's important to remember because, you know, not everyone wants honey in there. Or I will tell you that, especially out where you guys are, you can add maple syrup, right? Maple syrup has its own medicine. And yeah, Awanakwe, I would let yours, I would let it simmer with the swamp tea leaves in there for about 10 more minutes than we did. Like, just so it gets nice and infused with that swamp tea. And then you'll strain it just like we did. Okay. So, so yeah, so we could stop here if we wanted, but here's the thing. Honey is its own medicine. Honey is wonderful for coughs and colds and all kinds of things. Even like let's say you guys were out walking, or maybe you were out somewhere and you got a cut on your arm, and the cut was like really dirty and yucky. You can actually pour honey through it onto your cut, and the honey will actually pull all the dirt and debris out of your cuts. It's amazing medicine. It also prevents infection. But you want to try to use as close to like real 100% honey as possible. I saw that Mindy sent out honey to you guys, and that's beautiful honey. Raw organic honey is best. You guys, I hate to say this, but if you oh yeah, that's good info, Hunter. But if you buy cheap honey, very often it is not 100% honey. Have you guys ever seen those little bears that say honey on it, but it doesn't say pure honey? They're like $1.50 or something. Those are mixed with corn syrup. It's like says honey, but it's like half corn syrup. It's terrible. So those won't work, unfortunately. Try to look for pure honey, or pure raw honey. Raw means it hasn't been boiled down and pasteurized. And so it's retaining all of those amazing medicinal compounds in honey. Okay, now this is especially for the parents out there, but for the young people as well. If you don't remember anything else that I've said tonight, remember this, okay? Think about over-the-counter cough medicine, all right? Like not NyQuil, that's like a cough and cold thing, right? But I'm talking like Robitussin. I'm talking what's the Dimetap, the over-the-counter cough syrups that have dextromethorphan in them. So it'll say DX or DXM on it. Dextromethorphan. Why is that in cough medicines? What does it do to help control your cough? Does anyone know? So a lot of people are like, well, it soothes your throat, right? Or it, you know, it's good medicine. It soothes your throat. No, that is not true at all. Dextromethorphan is a dissociative, a hallucinogen, like an actual classified hallucinogen known as a dissociative. Dextromethorphan, over-the-counter cough syrup, acts on your brain to dampen the cough response. It actually only just makes you think you don't have to cough, right? So it's like when we give that to our kids and stuff, and they used to make it for kids. I don't know if you guys remember that. They don't anymore because it's like so harmful to, what happens is it dampens that cough response, but that's also the area of the brain responsible for emotion. And so it dampens emotions as well. And so do you remember like when we were little and like, you know, someone's parents would give them cough medicine and they'd sit there like this? It's because it dampens your emotional responses as well, your ability to feel. So, and you know, that's also why that stuff is used as a street drug these days. They'll mix it with like Kool-Aid and all kinds of stuff. So Do not, if you remember nothing else from me, do not ever use over-the-counter cough syrup. Why am I saying that? Because in numerous clinical trials, like actual clinical trials with human beings, they have shown that plain honey works better to control coughs than over-the-counter cough syrup. Plain honey, right? And that's numerous clinical trials. So if nothing else, if you don't have elderberry or elderberry elixir, you can use just plain honey, okay? But we're adding this beautiful honey to our elderberry juice, this infused juice that we made, okay? And how much honey did every person get?
Everybody got their own bottle, 32 ounces.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's not the whole, right? It's like half.
Yes, it's like half. So if you have, let's say you have, how much liquid you have left, it's going to kind of depend. I'm going to say I have 2 cups of liquid left. So I'm going to add a full cup of honey because I like it that way. Okay. So if I have 2 cups of liquid left, I'll be adding about a cup of honey. Now you don't have to, if you don't like honey that much, if it's too precious, if you don't want it to be that sweet, add just a quarter of a cup. Okay. That's totally up to you. But I'm adding about a full cup of honey. Let me see here. See this? So I'm adding about like a full cup. All right. Now, notice I am not putting this back on the stove, you guys. Do not put your juice back on the stove. It will be warm enough to melt that honey into there. Okay? And you guys can check this out. So you can see that honey is not completely melted yet, right? Can you see that? It's not completely melted. So I'm just going to stir this around until that honey completely melts into that elderberry juice. Don't put this back on the stove. You don't want to overheat your honey. Sorry, my husband. You don't want to overheat it, okay? So 8 ounces in a cup. Okay, sorry. Let me look at that again because it disappeared off my screen.
I said 8 ounces in a cup. So if you have 32-ounce bottles, about a quarter of your bottle of honey is what you guys are putting in there.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't add the whole thing in there. You could add half if you wanted, but you don't need to. Okay.
Someone asked, should they just throw all of their spices away when they've done draining it?
You can. Most of the medicine's gone from them anyway. But if you wanted to boil them and make a weaker batch, boil them again and make a weaker batch of elderberry elixir, do that too. And that would basically be a tea. It'd be a little stronger than a tea. There's no reason to waste that. Get as much out of it as you can. Yeah. And I mean, when I say this, it's not that this stuff is super expensive, because if you went into a store and you found a 4-ounce, just think 4 ounces, right? That's like this big. Okay. You found a 4-ounce jar of elderberry elixir. Sometimes that can cost like $40. It's super expensive for 4 ounces. Think about it. How much did you guys just make? Right? Probably 2-3 cups worth of elderberry elixir. That's if you buy pre-made elderberry elixir in the store, it's expensive. So it's much, much better to make it yourself, and you can add or subtract any of the stuff you want. You can make it your own that way as well. And you know exactly what's in it. Okay. So, I just got elderberry juice on my face. Okay. Okay. So my honey is all melted, and you can see it takes on this thicker kind of glossy shine. Beautiful. This is gorgeous. It's a gorgeous batch. I'm really happy with this. I always get really excited just because, I'm able to get medicine to people. But are there any questions or like you guys, we're done. Think about how easy that was. Let me just go over the process again. All we did was add our elderberries, spices, and water to a saucepan, boil it down for, 40 minutes, half hour, whatever, to let it reduce by 1/3 or 1/2. And then we just added our honey. That's it. We strained it and added honey. Okay. Boiled the herbs, strained it, added honey. That's all we did. It's super, super easy. And yet like just an amazing thing to have around. Yeah, totally. Jill, I want to drink some too. Oh, it's delicious. Yeah. This is going to be a family jar that we keep in the fridge. So
your name's, oops, sorry.
No, please.
He's showing off their jar of elderberry elixir, but his name's not Melissa. I don't know his name.
I can't see him.
I'm Peyton.
I see you. Can you show me that? I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Woo! Yay! That's awesome. Yes. So Hunter, just put it into a jar. Hunter's asking about storing it, just like Tyson. Was that what it was?
Peyton.
So just like Peyton did, just pour it into a jar, and you can put the lid on. Now, hold on just 1 second, because I wanted to show you guys something. What will happen is if you put your elderberry elixir in a jar and you leave it on the counter, it will start to ferment a little, okay? It'll start to kind of turn into vinegar, and then it could explode. What happened one time, my husband and I made a big jar of elderberry elixir. He forgot, and he put it in the kitchen cabinet. This was years and years ago. Put it in the kitchen cabinet. Like 3 weeks later, we heard an explosion. We were upstairs. We heard like this explosion. Came down, we're looking everywhere, couldn't figure out what it was. That jar of elderberry elixir exploded in our kitchen cabinet. There was like elderberry elixir and glass everywhere. So don't leave it in the cupboard, put it in the fridge. Here's a tip though. If you have some like lemons or limes, you can actually, let me see if I can see myself here. Just squeeze some lemon or lime juice into here. Okay, you guys can kind of see that, right? Squeeze some awesome lemon or lime juice in here. I have quite a bit of leftover lemons and limes here. So I'm squeezing that into here. I'm not too worried about the seeds. I'll get those out later. But this will help to preserve it even longer, okay? Yep, we're done, Hunter. Totally done. This will help to that lemon juice or lime juice will help to preserve it even longer, and it increases the vitamin C content in here. And I'll tell you what, like if you have some to add it. It tastes even better with the lemon in there. Okay. So we're also being asked, does it expire? You can keep this in the fridge for like 2 years. Okay. Mixing homemade medicine with leftover elderberries. Awesome. Yes. Yeah. I mean, even if and that's another thing, like your leftover elderberries and spices, if you wanted to put those in the freezer and like the next time you make a cup of tea, put a spoonful of elderberries into your tea, you could do that as well. You don't have to throw those away. You could put them in the freezer and use them later. The next time you make a batch of elderberry elixir, you could put those in the freezer and add those too. Why not? Right? So anyway, you can add some lemon juice if you want to extend the shelf life of it. Okay. Oh yeah, you could freeze them into ice cube trays. Absolutely. That's a great tip, Jill. Are there any other questions or comments about the elderberry elixir? Hunter's all like, I'm ready to go. Okay, so we have our beautiful elderberry elixir. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to contact me. You can get any of my info from Mindy, or you can find me on Facebook. Yeah, whatever you want. MJ is asking if you can harvest elderberries in the winter. If the elderberries are still on the bushes in the winter, you can definitely harvest them. They're tough to find. The birds have usually gotten them long before now. But if you can find them, absolutely, you can harvest them during the winter. Okay. You can order elderberries online as well, but I like to try to get them myself. Yeah. Would the elixir help with breathing issues? My dad had a double lung transplant last year and is still recovering. Absolutely. If he doesn't have any autoimmune issues, elderberry elixir would be wonderful. Yes, Hunter, absolutely. It's nice to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Sorry. I'm sorry I haven't been going to the meet. There we go. That's what I wanted to say.
You're good, Hunter. Thanks for coming tonight. I was glad to see you.
Awesome. Oh, yay. I'm so glad you like it, Chris. And make sure to take pictures of your elderberry elixir and send them to Mindy. Okay. That's always such a nice thing to see. And I want to hear about you guys taking them every day and about how you haven't been getting sick. Okay? All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Wait, did you finish talking about the lung thing?
Oh, so yeah, definitely it will help. If he has an autoimmune issue, I would use something else, but absolutely this will help to improve lung function. Totally. Thank you guys so much.